Get ready to get sticky. Sticky Situations is sponsored by Corona Crush. Corona Crush is creating Jewish couples always. Join the Facebook group. Just search Corona Crush and look out for virtual speed dating events happening every other week. They're 100% free and 100% Jewish. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Sticky Situations. I'm your host, Rachel, which obviously you already know because I'm unforgettable. Whatever platform you're listening on, go follow, subscribe if you haven't already, give us a 5-star rating, a glowing review, go like Sticky Situations page on Facebook, follow Sticky Situations Pod on Instagram, follow Sticky Situations Pod on TikTok. If you would like to be a guest on my podcast, I'm actively recruiting for more guests. So please reach out. I want to hear your dating stories. Or if you're a dating professional or you have any kind of opinions that have to do with dating, reach out. I want more guests. I want diversity. I want different perspectives. So either there are applications on all of my Corona Crush posts and in my socials. If you can't find it, just send me a DM on Instagram. Again, that's Sticky Situations Pod. Or you can send me an email at stickysituationspod@gmail.com. Same goes for if you want to date any of my single guests. You know that I would love to be a matchmaker. So, which is very appropriate for this episode, which you'll see in a second. But I would love to set you up with any of my single guests. So just send me a message. There are applications for that also, but you could just send me a DM or an email and I'll try to hook it up for you. Let's make some more Jewish couples and try to get my career as a matchmaker going. Okay, so speaking of matchmaking, I have an extra special guest today. So I have the CEO of Sophy Love and conscious dating coach and matchmaker, Sophy Singer. Sophy, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so happy to have you. Okay, so Sophy, can you I'll let you skip my usual basic information, which is usually because this is just going to be a different type of episode because we're going to hear about all of your methods and ideology
Mm,
and maybe some of your stories from your clients.
yeah.
Um, so can you just tell my listeners kind of what you do, what is conscious dating, and some of the work that you do?
Yeah. So I like to, people are like, what's a conscious matchmaker? What's a conscious dating? And so really, I've been matchmaking and date coaching for over 14 years. And it's been a joy and has its ups and downs. I myself kind of started how would you say it? I started to turn inward with myself a couple of years ago. I started working on myself, started really kind of transforming, healing myself, emotional healing journey. And so as that occurred, I started to change really from the inside out. And so this work just eventually, there was nothing I could do other than bring it into my work as a matchmaker and a date coach. And so what is conscious dating? I would say conscious dating is really, people say like, we have a conscious dating workshop right now that we're running. And it's like, really, I would say it's kind of just being human, like consciously human in the dating space. People say like, can you teach me some dating tips? And it's like, I just want to teach you how to be human in this space. And being human is not easy. And I would say conscious matchmaking and dating for us is really our process is it's really transformative versus transactional. I've really come to believe that dating and relationships can and should be a vehicle for healing and growth and expansion. And so I work with people who are interested in really doing something different so that they can actually get a different result from what they got before, right? They're looking to grow and change also from within and not necessarily just looking for Here's my list of criteria, find it. Yes, we have recruiters, we have matchmakers. We will take that list and recruit and match and find those people. But more often than not, when people come to me, they have been dating for a long time unsuccessfully. They've been going on a lot of dates, right? And so really what I find has brought the most success and has been able to really change the trajectory of people's lives is to actually dive inward while we're also diving outward for new connections and help people understand themselves, connect with themselves, and heal themselves along the way.
Awesome. Can you, I don't, it might be too much to get into, but is
Yeah.
there, like, let's say somebody came to you and I guess it's just more like, what kinds of things would you tell someone to look within to work on for themselves in order to relate to other people?
Oh gosh. So there's so many things, right? Like our inner world is this like amazing, beautiful thing that I did not even understand. I wasn't even aware of it until, a couple years ago. So, um, how do we look inward? Well, I think the first, well, actually, so I'll say like the two, I would say, modalities and practices that we use at Sophy Love to turn inward and to help us turn outward as well, slowly and consciously and from a place of awareness and presence, are internal family systems and authentic relating. So those are two practices, right? And modalities that allow for that. So, for example, I'll give you one example. Let's see. If you're if so if you're going on a lot of dates and you are noticing, well, I've gone on all these dates and every time I go on a date, this person I just notice I shut down when XYZ happens, right? And so that's a pattern, shutting down when something or the other happens. So really what we do is we're like, slow down. Okay, so what's going on? Why are you feeling triggered? What's Instead of shutting down, understand why you're so upset about whatever this other person's saying, and teaching people the skills and giving them the ability to actually reveal what's happening for them so that they could potentially not shut down, because usually shutting down is based on making assumptions. Like this person said something, it annoys you, you make an assumption that they're this way, and then you shut down and it's not worth my time, right? So that's like, I don't know, that's a very general example. I would say looking inward is important because the energy we bring, how we show up, how we're able to connect, is largely determined by these parts of us that started to form as we grew up and had different experiences throughout our lives, right? And that also determines our attachment styles and all of those things. And so, really, like understanding yourself and how you show up and why you show up a certain way is really, really helpful in softening certain things that create like rigid blocks to connection. Does that make sense?
Mhm. Yeah. So, okay, so can you talk a little bit more about the authentic relating element of it? Because I know
Yeah.
when we first talked about you coming on the podcast, you told me, and I read you had like a little intro to it. So I
Yeah.
just think it's interesting for my listeners to hear.
Yeah, so I'm going to share with you a basic definition about that. I think authentic relating is the most it's extremely like the most applicable practice when it comes to not only dating but just being authentically human in all relational spaces, right? All
Mhm.
relationships in your life. The cool part is you learn this while you're dating, but then it just applies to everything, right? Because
Yeah.
how you are in dating is really how you are as a human being, right? Is it that different? Are you a different version of yourself dating than you are planning to be as a future life partner or as a sibling or a friend or a child, like, it's being human, right? So the basic definition of authentic relating is that it's a set of ideas, practices, and games that are designed to teach people how to be their authentic selves while connecting deeply with others. And it also allows other people to, it gives permission for the other person to be their authentic self as well. A typical authentic relating session is like a set of some deep icebreakers that help people practice being authentic and open and curious and caring towards others. It's extremely transformative, not just in our relationships, but internally with ourselves. It shows us how often we shut down, how often we relate to others through habits and scripts and agendas, or miss opportunities for deeper connection. When we learn how to bring our whole selves into a relationship, we're not playing games, we're not strategizing, we're showing our full selves and we're bringing our vulnerability. And it just creates for much deeper, more often connections.
So I guess maybe I'll I can ask some questions if it's okay about like kind of the work that you do and your
Yeah,
client base and all of that
please do.
to get to know you a little bit better.
Hmm.
Can you describe like some of the like what kind of demographics do you work with? Like what types of clients? What types of
So,
people?
so I typically work with heterosexual, male, female, non-binary, whoever people, we have in our matchmaking community, we have people who specialize in LGBTQ and that, and I don't have the database for that. I don't have the people to match them with. So we usually like sometimes match just for fun if I know somebody, but generally I focus on straight men and women looking for relationships or date coaching, a, any race, any religion, all of those things. I am Jewish. I do work with a lot of Jewish clients, but I don't only work with Jewish people. I work with everyone. And age-wise, I would say my youngest clients are in their mid-20s. I have my youngest clients are, yeah, I've gone from 26 to I think my max right now, I have a 75-year-old client. So it's
Oh,
pretty
wow.
wide, but I would say the majority of them, okay, so now kind of narrowing in a little bit, I would say majority are people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s.
Okay, so I guess just some general matchmaking dating coaching questions because
Mhm.
a lot of my listeners I think are probably modern Orthodox. A lot of the guests that I've had on are modern Orthodox.
Okay.
I'm modern Orthodox. I actually don't know. My listeners could be anything. I welcome any and all listeners. That's another plug if you want to come on the podcast from a different perspective that isn't modern Orthodox. So a lot of us in the Orthodox world date through matchmakers. So it's
Mhm.
interesting. I've heard a lot of like religious world matchmaker. A lot of them talk about issues and everything in their perspective. So I think it'd be interesting to hear your perspective coming from a world that isn't like super religious and you work
Mhm.
with clients who are not Jewish. So just like some general like matchmaker dating coach questions. Have you ever gotten a request from one of your clients that you didn't agree with?
Yeah. I think those requests typically come hopefully before we sign before I sign them on, before they sign on with me as a client. So I do a pretty extensive intake and I would say screening process to see who is a fit for me as a client for our agency and who do we feel confident and good representing, right? Like, and that means like, I am not here to just take anyone's money that wants to pay me, right? I want to make sure that if we decide we're going to work together, I can really help them, right? I can be successful for them. And so sometimes there are requests that come up during the intakes that are to me kind of signs like, maybe I'm not the right matchmaker for you, right? Sometimes it's unreasonable expectations in terms of age range, right? You know, there are some gentlemen that are in their 50s and 60s or whatever, if they're coming to me and asking me to match them with women that are 25 years, 30 years younger than them, not going to be something I'm super comfortable doing. Um, kind of like that's not my jam. Yeah, and then sometimes it's like, well, like for example, I do get people coming to me asking to be matched with I need to be matched with someone of this net worth,
Oh, wow.
minimum. Yeah, or they need to make at least, half a million or a million a year income. To me, that's actually, to me, that's a sign that they're not actually dating for the right reasons. I don't match people on income. I definitely match people based on their lifestyles. But I will never guarantee someone like, oh yes, all your matches are going to make at least 1 million a year or have this net worth. Usually it's people who have a lot of money on their own, and then they want to be matched with someone who also has a lot of money, which I get, but like that's just not my genre of matchmaking. And by the way, there are other matchmakers who are wonderful, amazing colleagues and friends of mine who do those types of searches, and I always gladly refer them the business. That's just not how I match people.
So you said you do an extensive, like a vet, like you have an extensive vetting process on before you take on a client. Can
Mhm.
you tell me like what kinds of questions you would ask a potential client or certain things that you would do to vet them?
Yeah, so I usually like to ask, that's a good question. I usually like to ask them, I like to understand, what they've been doing so far, right? Like, what have they been doing in the past? What are they doing now to meet people? I'm trying to understand, like, why are we talking, right? Like, why am I sitting in front of this person and why have they decided to seek out the help of a matchmaker? What is hard for them? You know what I mean? I'm trying to understand also, like, what hasn't worked so far. Maybe they've been so focused on their career, they're so busy running a business, or they're also a single, maybe they're divorced and are a parent and working, and it's so hard to juggle all of it. They just don't have the time or energy to be swiping on dating apps. And there's so many different reasons why people remain single. And so what I try to understand is, what have they been doing and what's actually keeping them single? And will my approach and my services help solve for that? And are they open to that type of solution? Right.
Mhm.
So if it's someone who comes to me and they're not a single parent running a business, like if they're not, if they're like, oh, I've been on dating apps for 9 years, for example, I've been on dating apps for 9 years on and off. I go on 5 dates a month, blah, blah, blah. They're telling me this, but I just haven't met the right person. In my opinion, they've probably met the right person 50 times. Okay. They've swiped past them. They've gone on a date. There's more than one right person for everyone. And the fact is, I'm kind of wondering, like, are they recognizing, can they conjure this idea that maybe, like, what's the common denominator? They are. And so I tend to want to work with people who understand that what they've been doing so far isn't working and they're ready to do something different, make a change, approach this process differently, learn, grow, right?
Mhm.
So my matchmaking comes along with that process, the coaching, the turning inward, and understanding how they show up is part of what determines a lot of what determines their success in connecting with another person versus not.
I just want to go back to something that you briefly said, because I
Mhm.
think it's just an interesting concept. You said that there isn't just one right person for everyone. Can you explain
No.
your thoughts about that a little bit? I happen to agree with you. I know in Judaism we have the concepts of our basheret,
Share it. Yeah.
which is like our soulmate, but I think basheret
Yeah.
doesn't mean like one specific soul. I think it could
Yeah.
there's I think there's like a whole bunch of factors that go into it, but I'm curious to hear your opinions on it.
I mean, yeah. I mean, even if you were narrowing just to Jewish people, right?
Hmm.
I feel like there's so many different Jewish humans. So for example, how old are you, Rachel?
I'm 30.
So you're 30, right? So my assumption is that your dating age range is what? 29
Um,
to 35, something 30 to 40. What do you typically?
I actually like younger guys. Um,
Okay, okay.
not that much younger. I would say like all of my profiles have the range like 26 to 35. Ideally,
Okay.
I'm looking to date within 2 to 3 years of my own age. I found
Right.
it is like from my past, that's my best matches, but I try to keep a little bit open mind.
Right. So you're 30. So let's say 28 to 34, whatever it is, right? There are
Hmm.
so many Jewish men probably in New York in that age range that meet your basic checklist criteria that could potentially be your soulmate, right? I
Yeah.
mean, to me, your soulmate is a person who is who your values are aligned enough with, right? The core values, right, are aligned. You have you have similar life goals, and that person wants to make it work with you, and you want to make it work with them.
Hmm.
And that's a soulmate. You care about each other and the connection and the relationship enough that you both want to do what it takes to make it work, to maintain it, to sustain it, to grow it, right? And I feel like there's lots of different people that that could be at any given moment, but you only need one.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree with you. I also think at different times in your life, you need different types. Like if I would have met someone at 20 instead of 30, like he probably would be a different person. Like I'm not saying I think when you do get together with someone, at least this is what I'm hoping, you grow together as people. But
Yes.
just me as an individual, like I'm a totally I don't know if it's a totally different person, but I know like I've grown and matured and had different ideas, different things, experiences shape you. So like I think the right person for me at 20 is not the same as the right person for me at 30.
That is very true. You are 100% correct. And so at whatever point you are on your journey of life, there are many different people that could potentially be your person,
Yeah.
right? Like there's just so many people. There's millions of us, right?
Yeah.
Even when we narrow down to Jewish, age range, wants kids, let's say for you, modern Orthodox, all those things, there's still so many, right? And
Mhm.
so there's definitely not just one soulmate, which I think is comforting. I think it's just liberating not to be like, oh my God, when am I going to find that one?
Yeah. No, I agree. Because like you could spend forever just looking for one perfect person when in reality, I don't think anyone's going to be completely perfect for everything you're looking for. But I think there are multiple people that fit the majority of the criteria that
Hmm.
are good matches.
Yeah. Yeah. And then one of the things I work on with my clients is to understand. what parts of their criteria that they're looking for are dictated by things that maybe they just haven't provided for themselves versus, yes, of course, aligned values, same life goals, all of those things, right? You both want kids, you're both Jewish, you both all of those things, but a lot of people have all of these other criteria that are like, oh, he has to be this way, and he has to be like laugh out loud funny. It has to be, and all of this list of qualities that they think they need in another person. And oftentimes that comes from just, you know, something that's kind of missing and empty in them, right?
Mhm. Do you think people are too picky?
I think many people are too picky, but they don't like understand that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I talk to people who are, I like to call it discerning, selective. I mean, whatever you want to call it. Look, the more selective and discerning and picky you are, the less you'll connect, and usually the longer you'll stay single. So the more open you are to different types of people, personality traits. So maybe maybe you narrow down on, okay, you want to, you want to be with someone Jewish, you want to raise a Jewish family, you want a family, you want to live in New York, whatever the things are, right? But then, so those are like your core deal breakers that have to be there. But then the more you can soften on other things, like what type of job do they have? Or what type of sense of humor do they have? Or what are their hobbies? What are their, like the more you can soften on other parts of other criteria, the more open you are, the more you'll be able to connect with different types of people and welcome more connection in your life.
So I have a question. I don't know if you've heard of this new phenomenon going on.
Mm.
But have you heard at all about this quote unquote loneliness epidemic that's
Yeah,
happening?
yeah, I have.
So, I mean, honestly, I find it fascinating because from my perspective, I obviously see mostly the female perspective of it. So I'm sure there's more that I'm not getting, but it shows that men are subpar, women are tired of it, and they're choosing to be alone rather than be with these subpar guys, and these guys are just ending up alone because no
Mm.
women want them.
Mm.
So I don't know if you've heard it differently. That's the explanation I've gotten on it.
Mm.
But I wanted to hear your thoughts on it because we
I've
were talking about the connecting to people and like where we can soften and where we're too picky.
Right. So for me, what I've read and heard about the loneliness epidemic, I mean, I think one of the major problems is that people like the advances obviously of digital connection, right?
Mhm.
Connecting on apps, even like friendship connections, right? On like Facebook, Instagram. But we think we're connected, right? Your friends on Facebook, your friends on Instagram, you're chatting with all these people on a dating app. But in the end, you're not actually present with them. You're not spending time, you're not speaking to these humans. And I think that it leaves people feeling very, very disconnected and lonely. I think people are also losing touch with their ability to connect in a real human way when they show up in person because they've been on an app. Think about it. You're dating on an app, so you're shopping based on criteria for a partner, based on data, age, height, location, this, that, Jewish, all the things, right? And then when you show up, you're like evaluating them to see if is this a future life partner or not? It's like an interview, right? It's not like a conversation, like an organic just connection, right? You're evaluating and you're being evaluated. And I think that can feel also very isolating because then people are like, well, they didn't make the cut. Oh, you know, and is very isolating, create a lot of loneliness. As far as the idea that, just to address what you said, that like women refuse to date these men, that most men are subpar. I don't feel that. I don't feel, I think that that's kind of a narrative, a story. I don't think
It
that
definitely is.
so many men are subpar. I think unfortunately, over time, our society has prevented men from feeling connected to themselves and from being connected to their emotions and being able to express their emotions. And so only now I see like the tide is turning and there's more. I mean, I interview men all the time, and I'm noticing versus when I started matchmaking and date coaching 14 years ago, men have evolved quite a bit, actually. So I think things are getting better in that in that arena. And I don't know, like I think if you're speaking to somebody, let's say you're a woman and you're interacting with a man in the dating space and you feel like he's acting subpar, maybe he's coming off as lazy, not tech, you need to let a person know. You need to reveal this is authentic really. You need to reveal your experience, right? You're texting with someone, you feel like they're not picking the place or whatever. Hey, like I like to be at, like I have a value around being asked out. Like, can you initiate plans with me sometimes? You need to let people know. You need to let a woman needs to let a man needs to let a woman know. You need to let the other person know what you're experiencing and what your needs are to give them an opportunity at least to meet you there. And so I think a lot of times people just operate on the assumption, oh, this person's doing this or saying this or not doing this. So I assume they're this way, and that's subpar, right? So that's making an assumption without actually revealing what you're thinking, feeling, and needing, and then operating based on that assumption, which would be, okay, this person's not for me. I'm walking away for this connection. So that's why I encourage people to just reveal that, like, reveal your experience is one of the practices of authentic relating. If you're having like a subpar interaction with somebody, let them know you're having that experience. See, let them know what would make it better. See if they can meet you there, you know?
It's interesting because usually I take the approach of I don't want to hold some guy's hand through dating me. Like, he should know, he should be a grown adult
Oh,
and like know
yeah.
these things. I mean,
Yeah.
also like I'm 30. Like the guys I'm dating, they're not like they've been dating for years.
They don't know. They don't know. And it's okay to let them know what you need. Oftentimes they don't even realize. They're like, they think they're doing fine and then they're confused why someone walks away from them. I'm just saying, like, I just feel like you need to you need to be that which you want to experience in another. Like you would want someone to share their needs and desires with you, right?
Yeah.
Like, would you want someone to let you know if the way you were acting in any given interaction was off-putting to them?
Yeah.
Right. So what would be wrong? Why wouldn't it go the other way? I mean, I get it. You're like, they should know, but that's a way to stay disconnected. Like to me, that's a way to say, oh, this person needs to show up exactly this way. And if they don't, they're wrong for me. If you were to just that's kind of like, I would say a little bit like old thinking. And I by the way, I used to think that way too. And then when I started practicing, this and understanding myself and really revealing what I was thinking and feeling, it's amazing to see how people show up. You're giving them this gift of like, oh, by the way, like kind of sucks when you do this, when you wait 2 days to text me. Like it makes me feel this way. Oh, I didn't even know. I was actually waiting because I didn't want to seem too eager. Oh, now you're having a real conversation about both people's experience. Like again, I say reveal, 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 reveal.
Usually I am pretty good at just telling it like it is, but yeah, it's a good point because I know a lot of friends of mine, we get annoyed at certain things and like at some point I just like I gave up. And I'm just like I'm doing like I think one of my most basic examples is if I have a date with a guy, I expect him to confirm. Like I want him to confirm with me day of, day before, whenever that the date is still happening. Even if we
Hmm.
planned a place and time before, like I still want the reassurance that we still are going out.
Right. So why
Like,
don't you do this? I'll solve your problem right now. When you make the date ahead of time, why don't you let him know, hey, David, I really like when someone confirms the day before, day of. Could you do that before a date? Then they're going to confirm. And if they can't after you've told them you want them to,
yeah.
then that's the problem. But what you're doing is you're expecting them to know that about you. And to me, that's, I don't know, it's a little unreasonable. Or if they don't confirm, you don't have to tell them ahead of time. But if the day of the date arrives or the day before, let's say you're like, you made it a week prior,
Hmm.
hey, you could text them and say, hey, just confirming we're on for tomorrow at whatever, or just confirming we're
Yeah.
on for today. They'll say yes. When you go on the date, you can express at that point, hey, it's really important to me. Like, I really like when my date, like when I would love for you to confirm next time if or if he makes another date, can you confirm with me the date of or the day before? It just makes me feel better. Like I know we're on.
Hmm.
Okay, now he knows what you need. He can do it. You don't have to test him. He'll just know. And now you taught him something, right? You're like, "Oh, girls probably like this."
Yeah.
And he can do that for you. What I'm curious what you think about that advice. How does that land for you, Rachel?
So I used to just like sit there anxiously and I don't even know. Now I started, if he doesn't confirm, I'll text, be like, hey, are we still on for later?
Hmm.
I don't like doing it because I prefer when he does that and takes the initiative to do it. But yeah, so but a lot of times like my friends will text me like, "Oh, I'm supposed to go out with this guy, but I still haven't heard from him today. Like, is the date happening? Is it not happening?" Like, I need to know if I need to put makeup on, if I need to do my hair, like yeah, so it's just like and guys, if you're listening to this, confirm with your date.
Yeah, let's
Confirm you're still going out.
right. But I also say, ladies, if you want a guy to confirm and he hasn't confirmed, let him know you'd like him to confirm. It's pretty simple.
Yeah.
Or you can wait to meet a guy who already knows this
Yeah.
and discount a bunch of amazing men who just didn't pass that test, which means to me, that's like missed opportunities for connection. Because if the worst thing about a guy is that he didn't think to confirm without you telling him, if that's his worst issue, then you're walking away from someone potentially really wonderful. It's just so small, right?
Yeah. When you put it that way, yeah. I tend to see it as like a bigger picture like problem. Like when a guy
Mm,
doesn't confirm with me for a date, it shows me that he's inconsiderate of my time. Like it shows some sort of like being inconsiderate. And like
yeah.
that's one of my biggest pet peeves. Like if a guy shows me that he is inconsiderate and does not respect my time, he's done. Like I'm done.
Okay, so Rachel, you just told me your why behind wanting to be confirmed. You just told me the reason underneath it, which is great.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. Hey, here's the conversation with a new person. We have a date next Friday. Cool. Hey, would you mind confirming with me just to make sure we're on the day before? The reason and what you share your why. It really reassures me that there's like a respect for my time and my energy. So I have it in my book, but just confirm with me. Or let's say you don't tell him that the day comes, you have to confirm yourself. on the date, you can tell them, hey, going forward, can you please confirm with me? Because when you didn't confirm, it sort of brings this thing up. It makes me think there's not like you're not considerate or respectful of my time or energy. So if you explain why you want them to confirm or why you want them to do a certain thing, then you're giving him the reason and what you need. And then you can give him the opportunity to do that, which if someone can absorb that and be like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. I should confirm. That's a sign of a really great guy. This person knows how to listen, learn, change how they behave. Like to me, that's like those are like green flags, right? Oh, he listened
Yeah.
to me and he confirmed the next time and now he'll confirm always, right?
Yeah. No, and I've had relationships in the past where there's something that I either wanted or didn't want, and I expressed it, and then like he knew going forward and did that. And I think if someone
Right.
actually cares, they will do it, even if they don't think about it at the beginning.
If
So
they care
it
and
is a good
yeah,
point.
yeah, and if they care and if it's within their capacity, right? If they feel called to do that. Now, some
Yeah,
people, like for example, you might tell somebody, when I'm in a relationship, I need to text and be in contact every day.
yeah,
That might not work for some people. For some, it might be fine. He might say, you know what? That's a lot for me. I'm good with chatting most days. Would you be open to us making sure we're in contact maybe every day or two? Does that work for you? Like, do you see what I mean? You can have a conversation about your needs and where a person can meet you. And if they can't, that's okay. Then you know they're not aligned for you, right?
yeah. No, it's a good point. Okay, so I think this is really interesting discussion. Before we
Mhm,
move on, let's take a quick break to
mhm.
hear a word from our sponsors, and we will be right back. Sticky Situations is sponsored by Corona Crush. Are you tired of swiping on dating apps? Tired of guessing whether the cute guy or girl you keep seeing around is Jewish and or single? Then you need to run, not walk to join Corona Crush. Corona Crush is a Jewish organization working to create Jewish couples always. Corona Crush has over 30 confirmed engagements, over 22,000 members from all over the world, and has set up over 50,000 speed dates. Join the Corona Crush Facebook group and post yourself or have a friend post you and see who reaches out. Fill out the survey to sign up for virtual speed dating events happening every other week. Corona Crush is 100% free and 100% Jewish. Worst case, you end up with some stories of your own. Best case, you find the love of your life. Try it out today. Here on Sticky Situations, we tend to focus on bad dating stories, but sometimes dates do go well and lead to proposals and weddings. Who would have thought? And what do all of those require, you might be asking? Well, the answer is flowers. Who doesn't want flowers from someone they've been seeing? Don't forget, flower petals and bouquets needed for proposals. And that's even before all the flowers that go into weddings. Sticky Situations is sponsored by Primrose Flower Shop. In my opinion, Primrose is the coolest flower shop around and has the best customer service to fulfill all of your floral needs. Primrose offers a range of services from your basic bouquets to subscription services where you can get flowers delivered once a week. They deliver all over the tri state area, including Manhattan. Primrose does weddings, bar and bat mitzvahs, and other simchas. I've personally been to a wedding where Primrose did the flowers, and the work they did was beyond gorgeous. Primrose additionally offers in store proposals, including a romantic setup with candles and music. Primrose is located at 2922 Avenue M in Brooklyn, and the phone number is 929 376 9815. You can also follow Primrose on Instagram at PrimroseNY. So, if you can't get someone out of your head, buy them some flowers from Primrose. They'll either love it or they'll find you really creepy. But regardless, the flowers will be out of this world. Okay, we are back. Okay, so Sophie, I know we got off on some tangents, but I think it was interesting.
Yeah, yeah, for
Um,
sure.
so I have some more questions about the work that you do, your coaching,
Yeah,
matchmaking.
yeah.
So what would you say the biggest thing is that you find that people need to be coached on? And is that different for men versus women?
No, I think it's I think it's the same for men and women usually. I think, like I said, I think this is about learning to slow down instead of being autopilot, connect with yourself, understand yourself, welcome everything, right? The more you can welcome within yourself, the more you'll welcome within another person. Okay. Most of the times, the things that annoy us about someone else are the parts of us we don't like and don't welcome. So, really, as far as how people, what I think they need to be coached in, I think honestly, it's about learning how to show up and have um, a more present and authentic conversation with someone, especially on a date, that goes beyond just fact exchange of like telling about yourself, where you grew up, all the like basic, like surface level things, and teaching people some skills and ways to get a little bit deeper, what we call level 2 and level 3. Level 3 is the relational level of conversation, which is actually what's happening in the here and now between you and I, which people don't often get to on a date or ever get to, actually. So, level 1 is exchange of facts. Like, I'm a matchmaker. You live in New York. We're on a podcast. Da da da. Feelings about facts are level 2, which is I really enjoy being a matchmaker. I love date coaching. You might share, oh, I love recording my podcast. I love my relationship with my listeners. Da da da. Whatever it is, you're sharing about yourself, what you've done in the past, what you're looking forward to. Level 3 is what is happening now. Hey, we're sitting here in this given moment. I notice that, you know, I'm wondering if I shared things in a clear and concise way. I'm wondering if I'm rambling right now. That's vulnerable, right? It's like what's happening in what experience I'm having with you, Rachel, in this moment. So we teach people to do that just in all their conversations, and it can really change the course of a date. Because if you're on a date and you notice it's boring or you're tuning out or you're shutting down, a really fun and interesting question to ask to shake it up is, how do you think this date, like, so I'm curious, how do you think this date is going right now?
So it's funny that you say that because I would hate being asked that question
Why?
on a date.
Why? Tell me.
Sometimes I think I'm too honest.
But okay, so if somebody asked you, like, how do you think, how's this date going for you right now?
Like
And
I think
if you honestly answered what you weren't, let's say, or are you scared that your honest answer is going to hurt someone's feelings?
yes, because I think if it's a good date, there's not going to be that opening to even ask that question.
Oh,
But I mean, at least for me, like I'm a talker. I can talk a lot. I can talk to almost anyone. And if I know when I have a vibe with someone, I know when it's a good date. And when it's a good date, it's like a constant banter back and forth. And like maybe they don't feel the same way that I do, but like usually there's no opening for that. It's just like natural and flowing. Whereas like I feel like the dates that I've been on that where that would be there would be an opening, like I'm gonna say my honest answer and it would probably hurt their feelings.
wouldn't it be better for them to know how you're feeling rather than them operating under the assumption that the date is actually going really well?
Um, I mean, like, I'm also not the type to like drag people along.
Okay.
So once the date's over, like, if I'm not interested, I'm gonna tell them I'm not interested.
I have a question. When you're on a date where you're having a really great time, you're having a great time, are you
Hmm.
ever wondering if the other person is also having a great time and interested in you? Are you like
I
ever
can use
wondering about their experience of you?
No, because I can usually tell.
Yeah.
I also like, I mean, yeah, maybe like I'll be having a nice time and it'll come out of left field that he doesn't want to go out again. But I really like, I can't think of so many times that that's actually happened. Usually usually I'm the one saying no to a second date, or like
Hmm.
I'll get the or like if he says no, I'm also not interested. Like I haven't had it so many times where I've been interested and the guy says no to another date.
Hmm. Like they usually ask you out again.
Yeah.
That's great. That means that you're gauging your dates well. Like you can tell when you're vibing on a date, you're enjoying it, they're enjoying it, and it seems reciprocal.
Yeah.
That's great. So you must enjoy dating.
No, I really don't. Because
Oh,
oftentimes
why?
it's just me being bored and miserable on a date.
Hmm. What makes you bored and miserable on a date?
I think if I don't feel a connection with the guy, like I don't I can tell pretty early on if I have a connection to someone.
You mean a
And
connection in terms of like whether they could be a potential life partner for you
yeah,
or a
it's like a certain
boyfriend?
it's more of like a vibe. Like if I can feel a vibe with them, like I know we can have interesting conversation. There's a certain amount of banter back and forth. Like they've engaged me.
Hmm.
I don't have that as often. Like oftentimes like I find that I have to be the one to like keep everything going, keep everything interesting, and like it's hard carrying a date.
Yeah. So what about like just slowing down and if the vibe isn't there, just approaching it from a perspective of, okay, this might not be my person, but just getting to know a new person for the sake of connecting with a new person.
Yeah, so sometimes that's fine, but there's only so long I could do that.
You want to feel excited and entertained in the interaction.
Yeah, like I got dressed, I put on makeup for this, I did my hair. Like, if you're not interesting, I could be sitting on my couch watching TV. And a
What
lot
if
of
like
times, like,
that, what if that person is like a person that could become a friend who might know your future partner?
which great. I know that's why I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. I try
Right,
to I still
right.
try to like act engaged and like I don't know. I'm good at talking. So sometimes I lose my stamina at pretending, but like I'm good at
Mm-hmm.
talking.
Hmm.
So if I have the energy up, like I can keep everything going, keep everything friendly, keep everything upbeat and positive. But at some point I lose my stamina.
What are your thoughts on switching gears and just listening, like asking questions instead of having to talk and share all the time, getting to ask questions and just listening to understand the person, not necessarily to respond, but just to listen.
No, so I do. It's just sometimes people don't give you a lot to work with.
Yeah, I can understand that. I used to go on a lot of dates, Rachel, so I know. And I used to be very bubbly and talkative. I still am, but I was more like you and at your age. So I know exactly what you're talking about. Ah, that's funny.
Yeah, and I do try to ask questions about their lives, get to know them as people, but again, at some point, there's only so much asking I can do before I
Hmm.
just like those are the worst dates where I'm like, oh, he didn't ask me a single question and I had to do all the talking.
Yeah. I get that a lot from my clients, and so I just tell them like you need to reveal it on the date. If you notice you've been talking most of the time or you're asking all the questions, hey, I notice I'm asking you a lot of questions and I have a value around someone being curious about me. Is there anything you're interested in learning about me? Just prompt them.
That's true. It could put them on the spot.
Yeah, put them up. But like I notice you don't seem curious about me, or you're not asking me questions, so it makes me think that you're not curious to learn about me. Are you?
So do you think that's more like, I don't know. I think if I were in that position, maybe I wouldn't say that. Like, I would maybe say, "Oh, I feel like I've been doing all the talking. I'm going to give you the floor now to ask questions," or
So,
something
so I think
like,
that's a little bit more pressure. Like, I'm going to give you the
"Oh,
floor
really?"
now. Like, yeah, to me, it's almost like I'm wondering if there's anything, like, if you slow down and think about it, is there anything you're curious to know about me? I'm an open book. And they don't have to
So,
answer you in that moment. Like, you could say, you can even say, take a moment and think. Like, you don't, that's the thing. People are just so used to going so fast all the time and ping pong, ping pong, ping pong. Like, I encourage you, Rachel, to slow down in your conversations. And I encourage you to model that and also offer that to the other person. So if you notice you've just been chattering and chattering and chattering to kind of keep things going, give them the opportunity. Say, I notice that I'm doing a lot of the talking. I've been asking you all these questions. I feel like I'm interviewing you. Is there anything you're curious? Like I notice I'm wondering if you're curious about me at all. Is there anything you're curious to know about me? And just take a moment and think about it. You don't have to answer me this second. Take a few seconds. Like give permission to just slow down and be out of autopilot. It lets people just connect with their actual curiosity. If you give a guy a moment to slow down, he might be like, yeah, so I'm actually wondering about your podcast, as opposed to like, okay, quick, ask me something on the spot, you know? You see what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting. I'll have to try it. Hopefully, I don't have more boring dates. I try to weed them out before they get there.
Yeah. Do you ask anybody ever like things like, so what brings you joy in your life?
No, because I hate those questions.
Why?
I don't know. I just feel like
You don't want to know what makes them happy? What brings them joy?
I don't know. I feel like that's those types of questions are so like broad and deep and so lot like not my style. Like I think I've seen guys on dating apps put in their like prompts or whatever. It's like, tell me what you're most passionate about. And I'm like, no, absolutely not. Like I don't want or like a guy will ask me something like that and it's like, no.
Why? Why don't you want to talk about what you're passionate about? Why does that annoy you? I'm just curious.
Because it's like you don't even know anything about me and you're
Well,
asking
they're
me
trying
like,
to get to know you. That's a really good question, actually,
but
in my opinion.
I think you're trying to get deep before you even hit the surface.
Oh, I'm all about. So you're talking to the authentic relating conscious matchmaker. Literally, all I do is go deep. Like to me, the surface is the same across the board with everyone. And I think that if you want to determine if someone is a good potential connection for you, the sooner you can go deeper, the better. So again, building a comfort level, obviously, it sounds like you're not that comfortable going deep with someone before you feel maybe a certain level of safety or connection around them.
Yeah, I mean, like, I can't even say what I am passionate about, or the things that I am passionate about are gonna be like, it's not something I want to talk about it with some guy who I might potentially go on a date with
You
on a
mean
first date.
like your life passions, like your life passions?
Yeah, like,
So you
I
just
don't, I don't know, like my life passions change all the time. I'm also like, I'm not the most passionate person in general. I'm very much like logical. Um, there are
seems
certain
like you're
topics I am.
passionate. Seems like you're passionate about this topic of dating, and you have a whole podcast around it.
It's true. But like then it just gets into the podcast and dating and I don't know, it's just conversations. It's not even about my passions that I don't want to talk about. I think it's that like Most people who are asking me that, like, I don't really care about their passions. Maybe that's where it's coming from. Like, I don't really care what a person's passionate about if I like don't know them. Like, I'd rather get to know them on the surface before I hear what they're passionate about. And also, I think a lot of the times these guys, like, I might find their passions stupid. I find a lot of people's passions stupid, which sounds bad, and I know that. But like, there are certain things that, like, if you say that and I don't know you, I'm just gonna think you're dumb.
Mm.
And like,
So,
that's gonna turn me off way before anything else.
mm, okay. So you don't want to hear the answers to something that you think are going to be a turn off for you.
Yeah, like, okay, so you guys listened to the episode. I interviewed the creator of Loop, which is a matchmaking app. So I recently got a suggestion on this matchmaking app Loop, and this is probably one of my biggest turnoffs of a guy to say. And this guy in his profile, he talks about how he was doing this certain type of work, and then he wanted to do something he was more passionate about, and then went into this like nonprofit, whatever. And then in the description, because you can put a description of what you're looking for, he's like, I want a woman who is passionate about passionate about what she does for work. And I'm like,
Okay.
this is not something we share value in,
Okay.
because you're like, it for me, like, I am now judging you. And like, I don't if you tell me that and I already like you as a person, it's different. Like, I have friends who have certain career paths that are like super passionate and like passion driven, I should say. And
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm not judging them on their career paths because like I know them as people and it makes sense. But automatically I see that and then you're expecting the same of me. Like, okay, like, no, I'm an accountant. I'm not passionate about accounting. What I'm passionate about is making a living so I can live and like have a life.
Right. So like your career isn't purpose driven, meaning like you're not serving out your life's what you feel like you're on this earth to do. And the meaning of your life isn't found through your career. Your career is a means to support a life that you're building. But it
Yeah.
sounds to me that the meaning is for you is outside of work. And so I think,
Yeah.
yeah, well, maybe it's your friendships. Maybe, like what's most important to you in life, Rachel? Like what's most important to you in life
A
right
lot
now?
of different right now. Well,
Yeah.
right now I'm single. So I would say like the most important things to me in my life are my relationships, my friendships, my family relationships,
Mm-hmm.
my
Mm-hmm.
relationships with my community. And
Mm-hmm.
so like those are the most important things. So
Right.
like
So
I would rather have a job that pays me where I can do nice things for my friends and pay to pay to do things with my friends.
right,
Like,
right,
than
right.
to be super passionate about something and struggling through life and be like, I can't even spend time with my friends because I
Mm-hmm.
can't afford to go out to dinner. I can't afford drinks. I
Right.
can't afford rent to live in a neighborhood with my friends.
Right. Right. Yeah. So I think if a guy is like, I'm looking for somebody who's passionate about what they do, I mean, I think that person would probably be open to meeting somebody who works as a means to provide, but has like what you just described to me is that you feel alive and passionate about your relationships. And that's what's important to you.
Yeah.
And so that doesn't mean that someone like him wouldn't be open to that either. You know, it's kind of like,
Yeah, but my
you
thing
know,
is that's a turn off for me. I'm not open to someone like that.
you're
Because
not open to
also,
someone who has a purpose driven job, like that is passionate about what they do for a living.
I think it depends on what it is. If you're a brain surgeon and you're passionate about being a brain surgeon, fine. But if you work in a nonprofit and you want to walk around holier than thou, well, you make half my salary and I have to support you, like, that's not what I'm looking for.
Okay. Yeah. So you have a strong value around a man earning at least equal or more to. what you bring in terms of an income.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
going to lie about that. Money is important, especially in the Orthodox community. I'm not some person who has no career drive and is just
Mhm.
looking to marry rich. I'm looking for someone who I'm very hardworking. I'm looking for someone who has similar hardworking values and
Mhm.
understand the financial responsibilities that go with raising a family in the Orthodox community.
Yeah, that makes sense. Perfect
So,
sense. That's a
yeah,
good value to have based on your life goals.
yeah. But anyway, before we wrap up the episode, I wanted to
Mhm.
see, do you have any stories that you want to share? Like any funny stories, either from your clients or your own personal stories? No pressure, but
Hmm.
since we are a dating story podcast, um, I figured I would ask and open the floor if you do have.
Yeah, I have a really funny one that comes to mind.
Okay.
So a few years ago, I was working with a client and I set her up on a date with this guy that I really like. I mean, I love the client. I love the guy. He's such a great guy. Um, and I set it up, and typically in matchmaking, and with my agency, the way I do it is I set up the date. Well, not me now, but I set it up and we plan it for them too. So we make like a reservation for them, or we tell them, oh, you're meeting here for a drink or whatever it is, right? So we send them all the date details via email, text, everything. So, but if it's a dinner if they're going out to dinner, we make a reservation for them at whatever place. And they just check in under either my name or our name, or we make it under one of their names. They'll meet there, right? Because these people have never met each other before. And so it was during the holidays and it was a Saturday night. And I remember I was at my husband's company work, like holiday party. And I knew I had a date going out that night. Usually Saturday nights, I have a few different clients going on dates. And so I suddenly see my Apple Watch is like blowing up, like I'm getting these notifications. And basically, it's both the client and the match texting me separate, going, there's no reservation here under anyone's name. So I guess I messed up. Like I probably didn't click submit on Open Table or something, like I typed it in and just didn't go through. Who knows? So the reservation wasn't there. They were like, it was a Saturday night. So they were like, I even called the restaurant and I left the party. I'm like, let me call the restaurant. So I call the restaurant. They were like, okay, no, we do not see a reservation here. And we have no tables. Like we're packed. Like it was a popular restaurant on Saturday night. So the guy says to me, don't worry. I'm just going to, I know where I'm taking her somewhere. We're just going to go to a place nearby. She texts me and goes, oh my God, he's taking me to Denny's. Denny's. And I'm like, whoa, 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 hold on, hold on. And I'm like, Darren, no, like, what are you guys doing? He's like, it's all good. I'm picking up a box of wine on the way, a box of wine. Um, meanwhile, my client, she's like a culinary like expert. She went to culinary school. She's a sommelier. She has a sommelier license. She's like a wine connoisseur. She wrote a cookbook. I was like, oh no, no, this is like a disaster. So she's like, Sophie, I don't know what the hell is wrong here. What's up with this guy? She's like, he's getting boxed wine and we're going to Denny's. And I was like, Darren, that's a bad idea. I don't know what. So I don't hear anything for I think 20 minutes, whatever. Then he texts me, he goes, it's all good. She's enjoying her moons over my hammy. Like one of their like weird, like their funny names for their entrees. And I was just like mortified. I was like, did he actually take her to Denny's? Like, oh my gosh. He's like, everything was booked. I know the Denny's is open. It wasn't far. Anyway, they text me, both of them. They texted me like, I don't know, I think another 30 minutes later, 20 minutes later, selfie of the two of them smiling and laughing, going, punked. We were messing with you. We totally found a place across the street, a little wine bar, and got a table and had a totally normal date. They decided to play a trick on their matchmaker.
That's so funny.
they pulled a fast one on me. I have to say, like, after the fact, they know me well, so it totally went over, but I was, like, freaking out for a good, like, 20 minutes, 30 minutes going like, this guy, like, I was shocked too, because I was like, that's not like him. The guy's like a totally classy guy. So I would say that's one of my funniest matchmaking memories of my
Did they get
career.
married?
No, they didn't. They didn't get married. She ended up meeting someone afterwards, and I think she's engaged now. But I think
Very
he's
nice.
still single, actually. Yeah. Yeah. So,
That's funny.
yeah.
Okay, Sophie, is there anything else you want to share before we get into our wrap-up segments?
I think, like, I just want to share that um I know that I think the more I talk to single people every day for a living, and it's tough out there. It's a tough scene, very transactional. People are moving fast, treating each other disposably. And I think what I'd like to offer and just share is just for people to have some give themselves, like, give yourself, I'm speaking to you, listener, give yourself some kindness, some grace, and really, like, slow down. I feel like slowing down is kind of the medicine for everything. It's the starting point. If you could just slow down and see if you can reveal whatever you're feeling to the person that you're sitting across from in a kind, compassionate way. I think it just would allow for a kinder, more compassionate dating landscape in general.
It's true. I need to internalize that and follow that myself.
Everyone does. It's hard. We're in autopilot all the time. We live in a time where things move fast,
Yeah,
and so slowing down is really helpful. Yeah.
especially New York City. New York City is a very fast-paced environment. Like I got annoyed today because the train went slow. And
Mm,
instead of going like really fast, it was just going like normal speed. And I'm like, great. I'm never gonna get home. Like we're conditioned to go fast. And
yeah.
so
Yeah. In that moment, you could just be like, oh, I'm going to pop in my AirPods and take this extra time to, like, listen to another podcast or listen to some music.
yeah, yeah. Okay, Sophie, before or I guess to get into our wrap-up segments. I know we've been giving advice this whole episode, but can you give me and my listeners just one piece of dating advice?
Well, it'll have three parts. It's like the first,
Okay.
it's three parts with a part zero too. Slow down, slow down, welcome everything, welcome everything that you're feeling, welcome whatever's happening, assume nothing, check your assumptions, and reveal your experience.
Good. I definitely need to work on all of that.
I'm here to advise.
But we're works in progress.
Yes, always.
And yeah. Okay. And last but certainly not least, Sophie, do you have your tagline?
I think my tagline is that I'm a healer disguised as a matchmaker.
I like it.
Thank you.
And Sophie, can you tell my listeners where they can find more? I'll also put more information in the episode description. Can post it on the socials. I'll tag Sophie in the Instagram post for the episode. But
Mm-hmm.
just can you tell my listeners where they can find out more or see more of you? You can whatever you want to plug.
Yeah. So, my Instagram is, well, I'll start with my website. My website is Sophy.love. It's SOPHY.love. So most people spell Sophie with an IE. It is SOPHY.love. That's my website. My Instagram is matchmaker Sophie, all one word with a Y. And Facebook the same. You can find a bunch of information about our programs. We run conscious dating workshops. I offer um, obviously coaching services. I offer digital matchmaking services. I also offer executive matchmaking services. We hybrid them, we put them all together. I also have my own podcast called The Conscious Matchmaker. So we're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the different places where you could listen to podcasts. So if you have any interest in the things that I was talking about, we talk more about them there. We do run live events in San Diego and Los Angeles. And we have, like I said, a conscious dating workshop that we're running right now and starting a new one in May that's 4 weeks long, live over Zoom. All of that you can find on my website, Sophy, SOPHY.love.
Great. And I'll link all of that for you. Sophie will send it to me and I can give you all the links in the episode description. But Sophie, thank you so much. This has been so great. Thank you again for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It's been a really fun conversation.
Of course. And Sticky Situation Nation, you'll catch me next time. Bye, everybody.